take the 10,000-foot view for a moment on the mechanics of screenwriting, what we're going to cover in the coming lessons are going to fall into two parallel categories: structure and character development. And what I'm going to hit the hardest again and again is your first act and the importance of getting it right. Because remember what we said earlier about making a pact with the reader, about getting their attention, about standing out from the stack of scripts. Because without a working and workable first act, it doesn't matter how good your second and third acts are, they may never get to them. Scripts have been optioned or sold sometimes just on the basis of their first acts. Compelling and well-developed character or characters is the reason your script should exist. Yes, within an interesting and compelling situation, but it's the characters who take the audience through it. It's their eyes and ears through which we experience their world and their adventure. The same thing that focused and captivated Neanderthals around a campfire tens of thousands of years ago is the same thing that makes us shell out our hard-earned dollars for overpriced concessions and parkings and tickets and sit in a dark theater. And that narrative concept is conflict. Two opposing entities, ideas, forces struggling for supremacy, be it large or small. Conflict is the basis for all narrative. You can then reduce all effective storytelling to 6 words. Define the need, create the obstacle. That is the basis for all storytelling. And by the way, you can interchange the word goal for need. They're slightly different, but essentially serve the same purpose. So this 6-word equation suggests by its very nature that we need a few essential elements for an effective story. Clearly, the first and foremost is a protagonist, because someone has to have that need or that goal to act upon it. All that means in this case is the person whose actions become the plot. So if we have a protagonist who has a need, a goal, and acts upon achieving that need or goal, clearly the narrative requires an antagonist, someone or something that prevents the protagonist from achieving that need, the obstacle. What else does this imply that we need then for an effective narrative? 3 more things. The first is stakes and consequences for your protagonist. Define the need, create the obstacle. When thinking about or even writing your story, you should always be asking, what's the worst that can happen if my protagonist does not achieve that goal? That's what your second act should be like. But whether comedy or drama, this brings in the final narrative element that our 6-word equation we mentioned up front. We can trace this all back to. And that is emotional investment. The importance of investing the audience emotionally in the story. Protagonist does not have to be likable as long as he or she is compelling. But traditional hero, non-traditional hero, anti-hero, the bigger takeaway from all of this is to never lose sight of that all storytelling is emotional. That is, the narrative succeeds or fails with the audience by how well it works to relate to the audience.